Seriously, Hajime Isayama, who hurt you? Attack on Titan is a manga series turned anime that started in 2010 and officially ended with Volume 34 in 2021. The story follows three friends who, once having their childhood home, families, and comfort stolen by giant humanoid monsters called Titans, must now decide if they will roll over and die or fight to live. Seriously, Hajime Isayama, who hurt you? This story is probably gonna be one of my favorites and simultaneously one that frustrates me forever. Spoilers for the story coming up, but just know, if you haven't seen it, the following is intended for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. The overall story ultimately starts and ends with these three friends: Eren Yeager, Mikasa Ackerman, and Armin Arlert, who begin as children and end as adults. But it becomes clear from the narration heard in the first few lines, on that day, mankind received a grim reminder. We lived in fear of the Titans and were disgraced to live in these cages we called walls. That this story is about humanity. And humanity as seen through the eyes of a child. A child named Eren is such a troubled character. Someone said Sasuke was the ultimate traumatized boy bent on revenge, and Isayama said, "Hold my sake," cause what? This boy starts the story as this hopeful, determined, if not headstrong character, and very soon after reveals how broken, driven, and rage-filled he truly is. Eren, like everyone else in this show, is a product of war, and he responds accordingly. I think one of the most interesting aspects of Eren's character is the fact that for all intents and purposes, he was not special. Born into nobility or even a Marleyan, if you know you know, and yet by some twist of fate becomes not only the puppet master, but for a time, hope for humanity, and ultimately sole bearer of the weight of ending a 2,000-year-old conflict. While I do like role reversal and I enjoy my underdog stories, Eren's different because he isn't your typical underdog. He's more of a ticking time bomb than a hero in the making. This tenacity he exhibits, while not inherently adding to his skill, makes characters afraid of him. The nickname Suicidal Maniac comes to mind, and by the end of his story, I honestly can't tell you if I like him. He's so ambiguous, driven by rage, and manipulative to a degree that it makes him come off as just as much of a hero as a villain. At the end of the day, he was selfish, admitting himself that what he did was for the sake of his friends only. And because we follow him intimately, we understand. However, it doesn't make the actions taken any less wrong or costly by proxy. Love him or hate him, Eren Yeager is a cunningly captivating and complicated character. This entire story can be seen as military art. The anime can easily be added to top 50 war TV shows if it needed to be. The way this show broaches the idea of war and questions the sanity of existence is some of the best writing I've experienced so far. The amount of times characters interrogate their own weakness and reevaluate their motives across the sprawling story appropriately gets the audience asking these same questions. I mean, if it happened to you, what would you do? This idea that humans are inherently awful shows as early as episode 1 and only intensifies across the story. But the flip side, that they can choose to be good, is also present throughout. As a believer in Christ, I can obviously draw a parallel between this show's ideas of God, humanity, racism, and equality. But one thing I take away is that we as humans truly can't be our own gods. We're too selfish, proud, and truly weak to wield such power and influence. Glory wasn't meant for us, and so we buckle under the pressure. The choice to carry the world's burdens was never one we could carry. Thus, Jesus did. I know everyone won't share my sentiment, but that's the great thing about art. One can get a myriad of different responses from one piece and be justified in that exploration. In that way, art is subjective and the outcome can be beautiful. Speaking of beautiful, the art style of this show is gorgeous. The glossy shonen style and militarized aesthetics was some of the best choices this series made in not only having it stand out, but even watching the show, serving the world it's presenting. Before I'd ever turned on an episode, I knew I wanted to watch this show. Why? As soon as I saw the art, I said, whoa. Growing up on more Karamomuke and just finishing Naruto earlier this year, one of my first shonen animes I've seen, I gotta say, this show's visuals breathed new life into the genre. And I love the ODM gear traversal sequences. I'm not sure how it translates on the page, but by golly, Wit Studio and Mappa were cooking every time ODM gear was used. Woo! I also enjoy the drawn landscapes too. The use of light and shadows stood out to me here more than I expected going in. The supporting cast of this series is so strong. For a story that kills off characters like a hobby, I tended to grow a strong enough bond with most of them. R.I.P. Marco. But even with that being said, these characters dropped like flies. Seriously, Hajime Isayama, who hurt you? The way people died, gruesome deaths, and the amount of main cast fake out deaths had me like, I can't get comfortable, can I? The story, especially early on, employed so many twists that the narrative felt like it was always pulling me in different directions. Effective, if you ask me. The characters with the most screen time, though, have to be Armin and Mikasa. Aaron's ride or dies, literally, and the only other two most fleshed out characters. These three are a strong trio, and remain that way through to the end of the series. The dynamic of who's the leader, who's the strongest, and who's right bounced healthily between all three, and in the end, though they go their separate ways, still feel like that bond can never be and never was truly broken. Even after Eren betrayed them, these two held out hope, especially Mikasa. She, aside from being the greatest fighter in the series second only to Captain Levi, has the most beautiful ending with, yet toxic bond over Eren, where Eren and Armin are truly brothers and acknowledge it. It takes till the last episode for he and this chick to admit they got a thing for each other. What is it with anime and its avoidance of romance subplots? That being said, the Hilltop Tree ending was beautiful, and the credits showing the tree enduring for generations was also pretty significant. Okay, what else do I want to get off my chest? Jean reminds me of Zuko. Hanji had the best death scene in the series. The main trio is giving Dandy, Fenton, and friends. Levi is simply my favorite character and one of the greatest warriors put to screen. What is Zeke? Still waiting on the Mikasa to my errand. Opening 1 is the most epic thing ever, and this is the top 5 anime for me. Alrighty. May God bless and keep y'all. Peace and deuces. Seriously, Hajime Isayama.